What's up everybody, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 in the house, bringing to you another edition of the Flash Season 6 review series, and today I'm going to be talking about Episode 4 entitled There Will Be Blood. So with Season 6 embracing more and more of the horror aspects, so to speak, it's only fitting that the show does an episode set in Halloween, which is what we got for the 4th episode of the show. So, as we all know already, that Ramsey Rosso has been injecting himself more and more with dark matter. Now, for many of you out there, we all know who Ramsey Rosso will eventually become, and that's Bloodwork. And especially with Barry already learning about the news that the Flash is destined to die in the crisis. So, this episode hasn't been about Barry fighting the bad guys. It still is about that, but this has been more about trying to prepare everyone for what's going to happen after he's gone. So this episode was one of the show's strongest ones to date, and I thought this was really well done, and I thought it was really, really good. So with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's start talking about episode 4, entitled There Will Be Blood. So we kick off this episode with Ramsey breaking into the hospital that he used to work at as a way to get himself more blood for his experiments, and he ends up stealing loads of packs of blood. Ugh, disgusting stuff. Anyway, moving on. Meanwhile, Team Flash are trying to come to terms with Barry's fate, with the exception of Cisco. Now, Carlos Valdez has always been the practical joker of the show. You know, he's always been there to bust a few jokes and making everyone laugh, and with his pop culture references and him naming all the villains, which has been a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. Some of the show's best stuff and some of his best work as well. But what I really enjoyed about this episode, and his performance in particular, is the way that he's just not willing to sit back and let his best friend just be vaporized in the crisis. And he's like begging with Barry and says, look, there has to be a way to save you. And Barry, being the hero that he is, says to Cisco that, look, I've already accepted my fate, and you know, we all need to start preparing for the inevitable. And it's a really good performance from Carlos, if I do say so myself. I've always looked at Carlos, he's like quietly one of the main guys of the show. And I'm not saying that he isn't, because he is, but he's always been that guy that when push comes to shove, he's got your back no matter what. And you know, him and Barry, you know, like any friends really, you know, they've had their few ups and downs, especially about the whole Flashpoint paradox situation back in Season 3. But they're like brothers, you know, as I said in the previous video, all due respect to Team Arrow, Team Flash, they're much more of a family, you know, and it really shows in this episode a lot, and over the course of this run. You know, they're so much more than just a group of heroes or friends. They're like a family, and it's really nice we got to see that. And mega props to Carlos Valdez on a tremendous performance in this episode. And this won't be the last time we see him in action like this. We'll get to that a bit later on, but I really enjoyed this scene a lot, with Team Flash and Barry all trying to come to terms with what's going to go down in the crisis. Meanwhile, Joe gets a call at the hospital about the break-in and contacts Barry to investigate. Barry comes to the conclusion that this was not caused by a metahuman, and meanwhile, Ramsey continues to perform tests on the new blood that he had stolen while reminiscing about his mother in the time before she died. Ramsey then injects himself with the new blood, but it doesn't appear to have the initial intended effects that he wanted. So, as you can see, Ramsey's getting more and more darker and crazier with this blood obsession that he's been embarking on. Now, Ramsey truly believes in his dark heart of hearts that he's trying to save everyone by constantly injecting himself with dark matter and this blood. Yuck. He's becoming more and more evil, so this was really good, you know. Makes a change from seeing the speedsters of the show. I love the evil speedsters, don't get me wrong, especially Reverse Flash and Zoom, but it's really cool we're getting to see a whole different type of villain. I mean, the whole cicada thing, yeah, that kind of went over my head a little bit, but this was really enjoyable, and you know, this show's getting really, really dark. I love it though. But anyway, moving very, very swiftly on, Barry talks to Killer Frost and Cisco about accepting his fate, and Barry figures out that the only way to get through to Cisco is by trying to convince him to help save Ramsey. They are then joined by Nash Wells, who claims to have a form of science that can cure HLH if they agree to help him build a crypto circuit. It's a serum at a Mycoloc Labs facility which they actually uncovered from the Dominator 3 years ago. Now, you remember the Dominators from the Invasion crossover? Yeah, that's who he's referring to. So then Cisco asks Nash if the serum could actually work on antimatter, which could, in theory, save Barry from dying in the crisis. So they give it a try anyway. Barry, Cisco and Nash attempt to break in, but ultimately find that the serum isn't there and they quickly escape. Nash still needs Barry and Cisco to help him build the device, and they question him if he's lying to them or not. Now, the reason why for their very reluctant attitude is because, well, we've all watched the show. Harrison Wells, or versions of Harrison Wells, haven't always been very forthcoming in their motives. Harrison Wells, aka Eobard form. Harry Wells, he turned out to come good in the end, but obviously they have a right to be very cautious because different versions of Wells, as I've said already, are not very forthcoming when it comes to explaining or telling the truth. So it's nice to see them more cautious and wary of this Nash Wells. Barry then goes to a freezer in Star Labs and finds the serum which Cisco hid from him in an attempt to save his life. Barry tells him that he was going through all of this to prepare Cisco to take over Star Labs when he's gone. Cisco in the end gives him the serum and then gives Nash the crypto circuit. Cisco vents to Frost about how frustrated he feels about not being able to save Barry. I'm telling you, Carlos Valdez is absolutely kicking ass in this scene, and especially in this episode, and this wouldn't be the last time we see him in action like this. Barry then gives Ramsey the serum to try out and explains how to use it. Ramsey runs a test on it, but it ultimately fails. Ramsey determines that in order to activate the effects of the blood, he needs to start killing people, but not before stoking fear in them. Oh boy, here we go. Team Flash gets a call about it, and Frost and Barry go to the hospital to investigate, and they figure out that Ramsey is the one who is behind all the killings. Now, when Ramsey goes to kill people, they turn into zombies, so this is kind of like Resident Evil meets The Walking Dead, so this was kind of a really cool scene to see, really, and we see Frost and Barry in his Flash costume fighting off all the zombies, and Ramsey tells Barry and Frost that he believes he's doing the right thing and that his powers are the next step in evolution. Ramsey escapes, and everybody that he killed turns into a pile of black goo. Yuck, that's disgusting. One thing I want to mention, I should have mentioned this maybe at the beginning or maybe the second or third episode that I reviewed. I'm really glad to see that we get a brand new costume of the Flash, and it's much more close to the comic books. This is probably the most comic book accurate costume that I've seen of the Flash since the Flash ever started 5 years ago, and we got the chin strap back, so I'm really, really glad to see that. So just wanted to make a quick mention of that. Anyway, back to business at hand. Team Flash talk about Ramsey's turn to becoming a villain, and Barry decides that in order to stop him, he has to do this before dying. So Barry's looking at this like this is his last stand before he dies in the crisis. So it's good to see him accepting his destiny and fate as a hero. Cisco apologises to Barry for his actions, and they have a hug, and Barry says that I'm making you leader of Team Flash. So yeah, I'm really glad that it's Cisco. I love Iris, don't get me wrong, but Cisco is the more natural choice to be the leader. What can I say? He's the man. So Joe and Barry have a heart-to-heart, and Joe reassures Barry that he shouldn't beat himself up about Ramsey's disappearance. But he can clearly see that he's upset by the fact that Barry is destined to die, and what we get next is another fantastic scene with Grant Gustin and Jesse L. Martin. You know what? I've always loved these scenes, as I said in the previous review that I did, but these guys they just make me cry, but in a good way. That's how awesome they are. And yeah, we really got to see that again, and you know, God, I love these shows. They're so well written. When they want to be, these shows can be so good, and this is living proof of that. And to see, you know, Joe just break down in tears, you know, it even made me cry. I mean, damn, that's how good this was. I mean, wow, it's so good this was. And you could really see the emotion just pouring out of Joe's body, and that line where he says the world owes you really, really touched me. So this was a fantastic scene once again with these two. So after all that, Nash uses the crypto device that Cisco built him to conjure up a vision of the Monitor. He tracks it down to some sort of building in the sewers and attempts to break it. And that's the last shots we see. Also, one more thing I wanted to point out. Ralph got an eyewitness report on the Sue Dearborn disappearance, but he decides it's a lost cause because he's too down about not being able to save Barry. But Ralph later apologises to Iris, and he agrees to follow up on the eyewitness. So overall, fantastic episode. Really knocked this one right out of the park. I would say this season is definitely making up for season 5. Not hating on season 5, I enjoyed it. Just the cicada thing just dragged out a little bit too long for my liking, but this episode, There Will Be Blood, was really, really good, and the way they're building up Ramsey Rosso to become Bloodwork has just been a real joy to watch. So with that all said, I'm going to leave this here for you guys. Did you enjoy this one? Was there anything you didn't like? What was your favourite moments? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see you all next time for another edition of the Flash Season 6 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 5. So till then, take care everybody.